The glass doors of Kingsley Enterprises gleamed under the morning sun, a towering symbol of wealth and power. Inside, employees in sharp suits moved with purpose, their expensive briefcases swinging, their voices low with the hum of ambition. But outside, a single motorbike roared to a stop, its engine cutting through the polished silence. Jordan Carter stepped off, his worn hoodie and faded jeans a stark contrast to the corporate sheen. To the world, he was nobody, just a guy with a backpack slung over one shoulder. But Jordan was no stranger to this empire. He was the firstborn son of its billionaire owner, the heir to it all, and today, he was here to uncover a betrayal that had festered too long. Jordan adjusted his backpack and strode toward the entrance, his boots heavy on the pavement. He'd heard the rumors: discrimination, unfair promotions, minorities treated like they didn't belong. His father, Robert Kingsley, had built this company, but Jordan, raised by his late black mother abroad, had been gone for years. Now he was back, not as the heir, but as a ghost, slipping into the shadows to see the truth for himself. The glass doors slid open, and the air shifted. Eyes turned. Whispers followed. Employees in designer suits sized him up, their gazes lingering on his casual clothes, his dark skin, his quiet confidence. They didn't know who he was. And that was exactly how he wanted it. At the reception desk, two women in crisp blouses exchanged glances. One leaned forward, her voice dripping with skepticism. "Can I help you?" she asked, her eyes flicking to his backpack like it was evidence of some crime. Jordan smiled, calm and unshaken. "I'm looking for a job. Any openings?" The second receptionist smirked, barely hiding her amusement. Before she could answer, a man stepped forward, tall, stocky, with slicked back hair and a suit that screamed self-importance. Kevin Matthews, senior manager, the kind of guy who thrived on control. He looked Jordan up and down, his lips curling into a smug grin. "Hey, man," Kevin said, his voice loud enough to draw attention. "Deliveries go to the back." The words landed like a slap, and a few employees nearby chuckled. Jordan paused, letting the insult settle. He could have corrected him, could have dropped his father's name and watched Kevin's face collapse. But not yet. Instead, he met Kevin's gaze, his own eyes sharp and steady. "Not here for a delivery," he said evenly. "I need a job. Anything you've got." Kevin raised an eyebrow, clearly entertained. "A job? Here?" He snorted, folding his arms. "You sure about that?" Jordan nodded, his expression neutral. "Dead sure." The receptionist tapped her keyboard, her smirk widening as she glanced at Kevin. "Well, look at that," she said, her voice laced with mockery. "Janitorial team's hiring." The room seemed to hold its breath, waiting for Jordan to back down. Kevin's grin grew, his eyes gleaming with condescension. "So, what do you say? You wanted an opportunity, right?" Jordan tilted his head, as if weighing the offer. He felt their stares, their quiet laughter, their assumption he'd walk away. But he didn't. "I'll take it," he said, his voice clear and firm. Kevin blinked, caught off guard. "What?" Jordan repeated himself, louder this time. "I'll take it." Laughter erupted, Kevin's the loudest, joined by the employees who'd been watching. They thought he was desperate, a joke, a man who'd just signed up to clean their floors. But Jordan didn't flinch. He smiled, a slow, knowing smile, because they had no idea what they'd done. They just handed the future CEO of Kingsley Enterprises a front row seat to their world, a world he was about to tear apart. Jordan's first day as a janitor was a trial by fire. The uniform was stiff, the mop heavy, and the air thick with judgment. He pushed the bucket down the gleaming hallway, the chandeliers above casting light on floors polished by years of unseen hands. But no one had ever done this job like Jordan. He wasn't just cleaning, he was watching, listening, learning. Every glance, every whisper, every slight was a piece of the puzzle he'd come to solve. And it didn't take long for the betrayal to show itself. Amanda Whitmore, the janitorial supervisor, was a tall woman with a permanent scowl and a voice that could cut glass. She'd been at Kingsley for years, wielding her small slice of power like a weapon. From the moment she laid eyes on Jordan, she decided he didn't belong. You, she snapped, storming toward him not an hour into his shift. Jordan looked up from the mop, his face calm. Yeah? Amanda's eyes narrowed. What do you think you're doing? He glanced at the floor, then back at her. Mopping. Her lips twitched with irritation. Don't get smart with me. I don't like your kind acting like you're above your station. Your kind. The words hung in the air, sharp and deliberate. Jordan's jaw tightened, but he didn't react. He wanted to see how far she'd go. And Amanda went far. If he mopped a hallway, she'd call it sloppy. If he wiped a desk, she'd point out invisible streaks. If he emptied a trash bin, she'd complain he was too slow. She didn't just correct him, she humiliated him, her voice loud enough for everyone to hear. Are you stupid? She sneered one afternoon in the executive lounge, tossing a rag at him. A few employees nearby snickered. Jordan set the rag down, his voice steady. Did I do something wrong? Amanda rolled her eyes. Oh, I don't know. Maybe the fact that you're still here, mopping like a child. The laughter stung, but Jordan didn't break. He memorized their faces, their voices, their casual cruelty. He was building a case, and Amanda was making it easy. But she wasn't alone. Kevin Matthews was worse. The senior manager seemed to take personal joy in making Jordan's life hell. He'd walk by and accidentally drop trash on the floor Jordan had just cleaned. He'd spill coffee and demand Jordan mop it up, smirking as he did. Get to it, boy, he'd say, the word dripping with venom. And he did it all in front of others, feeding off their amusement. To Kevin, Jordan was nothing, a nobody to be stepped on. But not everyone joined in. A few employees watched Jordan differently. Linda, a quiet woman from accounting, once slipped him a bottle of water when Amanda wasn't looking. Don't let her get to you, she whispered. Jordan nodded, grateful but silent. He wasn't here to make friends, he was here to expose a system that let people like Kevin and Amanda thrive. And every day, that system revealed itself more clearly. The breaking point came on a Friday. Jordan had just finished cleaning the executive conference room, the glass table sparkling under the lights. Amanda stormed in, her face twisted with rage. What is this? She snapped, pointing at the table. Jordan blinked. It's the table. She scoffed, her voice rising. This is filthy. Are you blind? He glanced at the polished glass. I just cleaned it. Amanda's lips curled into a sneer. You missed a spot. Then, without warning, she grabbed a full cup of coffee and flung it across the table. The dark liquid splattered, dripping onto the floor. She crossed her arms, staring him down. Now clean it again. The room went silent. Employees passing by froze, their eyes wide. Jordan stood still, the mop in his hand, the weight of every insult, every slight, every moment of disrespect pressing down on him. He inhaled slowly, and then he smiled. Not yet, he thought. But soon. Because Amanda and Kevin had no idea who they were dealing with. They thought they'd broken him. They thought he was just a janitor. But Jordan Carter was playing a longer game, and the real show was about to begin. Jordan Carter stood in the executive conference room, the coffee Amanda had thrown still dripping from the glass table onto the floor. The silence was deafening, every eye on him, waiting for him to crumble under her humiliation. But Jordan didn't move. His grip on the mop was steady, his face calm, his eyes locked on Amanda's smug expression. She thought she'd won, thought she'd put him in his place. She had no idea she'd just lit the fuse. Jordan nodded once, almost to himself, and began to clean the mess, each swipe of the rag deliberate. He wasn't just wiping coffee, he was biding his time, and time was running out for Amanda Whitmore. The days that followed were a gauntlet. Amanda's cruelty sharpened, as if she sensed something in Jordan's quiet defiance that threatened her. She'd bark orders, criticize his every move, and make sure everyone heard. You call that clean? She'd snap, pointing at a spotless hallway. Do it again. Jordan would nod and comply, his silence unnerving her more than any comeback could. Kevin Matthews, meanwhile, doubled down. He'd linger near Jordan's work, dropping snide remarks. "Better hurry up, boy," he'd say, kicking over a trash can Jordan had just emptied. Wouldn't want Amanda to lose her temper. The employees who laughed along fueled Kevin's ego, but Jordan saw the others, the ones who stayed quiet, the ones who looked away. They were starting to notice him, too. Linda, the accountant who'd shown him kindness, was one of them. She'd catch his eye sometimes, offering a small nod or a quick word when no one was looking. "You're better than this," she said one day, passing him in the break room. Jordan gave her a faint smile. "We'll see," he replied, his voice low. He wasn't here to prove himself to her or anyone else. He was here to expose the rot in Kingsley Enterprises, and every insult, every spilled coffee, every smirk was another nail in the coffin of the people who thought they ran this place. Jordan's nights were spent planning. After his shift, he'd ride his motorbike to a small apartment across town, where he pored over company records he'd accessed through his father's private server. The rumors he'd heard were true, promotions skewed toward a certain type, complaints from minority employees ignored, a culture that rewarded people like Kevin and Amanda for keeping standards that were just thinly veiled prejudice. Jordan's father, Robert Kingsley, had trusted his senior team too long, and they'd let this poison spread. Jordan wasn't just going to clean it up, he was going to burn it out. Back at the office, the tension grew. Amanda's attacks became more personal. One morning, she cornered Jordan in the supply closet, her voice low and venomous. "You think you're slick, don't you?" she hissed. "Acting all calm, like you're above this. Let me tell you something, you're nothing here. You'll never be anything." Jordan looked her in the eye, his voice steady. "You sure about that?" For a moment, Amanda faltered, unsettled by his calm. Then she scoffed and stormed out, but Jordan saw the crack in her armor. She was starting to feel it, the shift, the sense that he wasn't what he seemed. Kevin, too, was getting reckless. He'd taken to singling Jordan out in front of higher-ups, as if proving his dominance. During a staff meeting in the boardroom, he accidentally spilled a soda on the floor as Jordan cleaned nearby. "Oops," Kevin said loudly, grinning as executives chuckled. "Better get that, janitor." Jordan paused, mop in hand, and met Kevin's gaze. "No problem," he said, his tone so even it made Kevin's smile falter. The room went quiet for a split second, and Jordan saw it, a flicker of doubt in Kevin's eyes. He was starting to wonder why this janitor didn't break. The truth was, Jordan was unbreakable. He'd grown up with his mother's strength, her lessons about dignity and resilience etched into him. She'd raised him to face the world's ugliness head-on, to outsmart it, not outfight it. Every slight he endured now was fuel, every moment of disrespect a step closer to his goal. He wasn't just enduring, he was studying. He knew Kevin's schedule, his allies, his weaknesses. He knew Amanda's temper, her need for control. He knew the employees who laughed and the ones who didn't. And he knew something else, his father was coming. Robert Kingsley's visit was announced on a Monday. The receptionist's phone rang, and her face went pale as she relayed the news. "Mr. Kingsley's coming tomorrow," she whispered, and the office erupted into chaos. Executives straightened their ties, secretaries scrambled to organize files, and Kevin practically glowed with ambition. "This is it," he told Amanda in the hallway, his voice brimming with confidence. "My chance to impress the boss. Maybe even get that promotion." Amanda nodded, adjusting her blouse. "We've got this," she said. "Just keep that janitor out of sight. He's an embarrassment." Jordan overheard them, pushing his mop nearby. He kept his head down, but a faint smile tugged at his lips. They thought they were about to shine. They thought Robert Kingsley was their ticket to glory. They had no idea he was bringing their reckoning. That night, Jordan called his father. "It's time," he said simply. Robert's voice was heavy on the other end. "You're sure?" Jordan didn't hesitate. "I've seen enough." The call ended, and Jordan sat back, the weight of tomorrow settling over him. The game was almost over. The next morning, the office buzzed with nervous energy. Employees whispered about Robert Kingsley's arrival, speculating about why he was coming. Kevin strutted through the halls, shaking hands with executives, his ego on full display. Amanda barked orders at the janitorial staff, her scowl deeper than ever. Jordan moved through it all like a shadow, cleaning, watching, waiting. He felt the stares, the same ones he'd felt his first day, but now they carried a different weight. A few employees avoided his gaze, as if sensing something was off. Linda caught his eye and gave him a small, curious smile. Jordan nodded back, his expression unreadable. The elevator dinged at 10 a.m., and the room fell silent. Robert Kingsley stepped out, a tall man in a sleek gray suit, his presence commanding respect. Behind him, assistants and bodyguards moved with precision. Every employee stood straighter, every voice hushed. Kevin puffed out his chest, ready to make his move. Amanda smoothed her skirt, her eyes bright with anticipation. Robert walked to the center of the floor, his gaze sweeping the room. Then he smiled, and his voice cut through the silence like a blade. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, "today is a special day for Kingsley Enterprises." The room held its breath. Kevin leaned forward, Amanda clasped her hands, and the whispers stopped. Robert's eyes found Jordan, still in his janitor's uniform, standing quietly with his mop. "For years, I'd built this company with a vision of greatness," Robert continued. "But greatness means integrity. And today, I'm proud to announce that my firstborn son is here, in this building, ready to lead us into the future." Confusion rippled through the room. Firstborn son? Kevin's mind raced, his eyes darting to the executives, assuming it was one of them. Amanda's smile froze, her confidence unshaken. She was sure it was some polished suit, someone like her. The whispers grew. "Who is it?" someone muttered. Robert's voice rose again, steady and proud. "Jordan, come here." Time stopped. Every head turned. Kevin's face drained of color. Amanda gasped, her hand flying to her chest. And there, stepping forward, still holding his mop, was Jordan Carter. The janitor. The man they'd mocked, belittled, humiliated. The room went dead silent, and in that moment, Kevin and Amanda knew they'd made the biggest mistake of their lives. The silence in Kingsley Enterprises was suffocating. Jordan Carter stood in his janitor's uniform, mop still in hand, as every pair of eyes locked onto him. The air crackled with shock, disbelief, and the dawning horror of those who'd mocked him. Kevin Matthews, the smug senior manager, stood frozen, his face pale, his mouth twitching as if searching for words that wouldn't come. Amanda Whitmore, the venomous supervisor, clutched her chest, her eyes wide with panic. They'd spent days tearing Jordan down, laughing at him, spilling coffee just to watch him clean it. Now, the man they treated like dirt was their new CEO. The truth hung heavy, and Jordan let it sink in. He stepped forward, his boots steady on the polished floor, his gaze sweeping the room. Employees whispered, their voices a frantic hum. "Is this real?" someone muttered. The janitor, another hissed. Jordan's father, Robert Kingsley, stood behind him, his face unreadable but his presence a silent endorsement. Jordan's eyes were sharp, cutting through the crowd, memorizing every face, the ones who'd laughed, the ones who'd stayed silent, the ones who'd shown him kindness. He wasn't just a janitor anymore. He was the heir, the future, and the judge. "I assume you have questions," Jordan said, his voice smooth and commanding. The room went still. Kevin blinked rapidly, his hands trembling. Amanda looked like she might bolt, her breath shallow. Jordan let the silence stretch, his calm unnerving them more than any outburst could. He turned to his father, who gave a slight nod, as if handing him the reins. Jordan faced the crowd again, his posture perfect, his authority undeniable. "My name is Jordan Carter Kingsley," he said. "I'm the firstborn son of Robert Kingsley, and as of today, I'm your CEO." The words landed like a thunderclap. A low whistle came from the back. Employees exchanged stunned glances. Kevin's knees buckled slightly, his bravado gone. Amanda let out a strangled gasp, her face bright red. Jordan paced slowly, his mop set aside, his hands clasped behind his back. "For the past week," he continued, "I've worked here as a janitor. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to see how this company, my company, treats people when no one's watching." His eyes locked onto Kevin, who flinched. What I saw was disgusting. Kevin's breath hitched. Jordan took a step toward him, his voice dropping, each word precise. You, Kevin Matthews, assumed I was a nobody. You mocked me, laughed in my face, called me boy. You did it because you thought you were untouchable. Kevin opened his mouth, a weak protest forming, but Jordan raised a hand, and Kevin's jaw snapped shut. The room was so quiet you could hear hearts pounding. Jordan turned to Amanda, whose eyes darted desperately for an escape. And you, he said, his tone soft but deadly. You threw coffee across a table and made me clean it. You humiliated me in front of everyone. Why? Because you thought I was beneath you. Amanda squeezed her eyes shut, her hands gripping her skirt. Sir, she started, but Jordan cut her off. Let me ask you both something, he said, his voice slicing through the tension. If you'd known who I was from the start, would you have treated me that way? Silence. A long, agonizing silence. Kevin stared at the floor, his shoulders slumped. Amanda nodded slowly, her face crumpling. Jordan's lips curved into a faint, knowing smile. That's the problem, he said. That's why I'm here. The room shifted, the weight of his words settling over everyone. Jordan wasn't just exposing Kevin and Amanda, he was exposing a system that let them thrive. Employees who'd laughed now looked away, guilt creeping into their faces. Others, like Linda, watched with quiet respect. Jordan's gaze swept the crowd again, his voice rising. I've seen how you treat people you think don't matter. I've felt it. I've cleaned your messes, taken your insults, and watched you laugh. But I've also seen something else. He paused, his eyes softening briefly. Not all of you were cruel. Some of you showed kindness. That won't be forgotten. Kevin's hands shook, his mind racing for a way out. Sir, he stammered, forcing a shaky smile. I had no idea. I didn't mean. Jordan's hand shot up again, silencing him. You didn't know, Jordan said, his voice cold. That's the point. You didn't care who I was. You saw someone you thought was less than you, and you acted like it. Kevin's head dropped, his bravado shattered. Amanda tried next, her voice trembling. Sir, I was just following company policy, she blurted, desperate. Jordan raised an eyebrow. Company policy, he said. Throwing coffee is policy? Amanda's face went ghostly pale, her words dying in her throat. Jordan turned to his father, who'd been watching without a word. Robert Kingsley's expression was heavy, his eyes carrying a mix of pride and shame. He'd built this company, but he'd let it fester under people like Kevin and Amanda. Now, his son was setting it right. Jordan, Robert said, his voice low but clear. What do you think should be done? The question hung in the air, a test and a verdict all at once. Kevin's eyes widened, his breath catching. Amanda clutched her hands together, pleading silently. Every employee leaned forward, the tension unbearable. Jordan didn't hesitate. Fire them, he said, his voice steady and final. A collective gasp rippled through the room. Robert nodded, his face grim. Kevin Matthews, he said, his tone like a gavel. Your employment is terminated, effective immediately. Kevin's knees buckled, a choked no, please, escaping his lips. Robert ignored him, turning to Amanda. Amanda Whitmore, your position is revoked. You're no longer employed here. Amanda let out a soundless scream, her eyes darting to Jordan, begging for mercy. Jordan met her gaze, unyielding, and raised a hand. Her plea died instantly. The room was chaos without sound. Employees stared, some in shock, others in quiet approval. Kevin and Amanda stood like statues, their worlds collapsing. They'd spent days humiliating a man they thought was nothing, and now they were the ones with nothing left. But Jordan wasn't done. He turned to the crowd, his voice cutting through the haze. Not all of you stayed silent, he said. His eyes found Linda, who stood near the back, her face a mix of surprise and emotion. Linda, he said, step forward. Linda hesitated, then walked to the front, her hands clasped nervously. Jordan turned to his father. "My first decision as CEO," he said, "is to promote Linda, effective immediately." Gasps filled the room. Linda's eyes filled with tears, her breath catching. "Sir," she started, but Jordan shook his head. "You earned it," he said simply. The room shifted again, the balance tipping. For every Kevin and Amanda, there was a Linda, someone who'd chosen kindness over cruelty. And Jordan was making it clear, that was the future of Kingsley Enterprises. The air in Kingsley Enterprises was thick with the aftermath of Jordan Carter's revelation. Kevin Matthews and Amanda Whitmore stood like ghosts, their careers shattered, their arrogance reduced to trembling silence. The employees around them were stunned, their whispers a low buzz of shock and guilt. Jordan, still in his janitor's uniform, stood at the center of it all, his presence commanding the room. He'd just fired two of the company's worst offenders and promoted Linda, the one person who'd shown him kindness. But he wasn't done. The real work, changing the soul of this company, was just beginning. Jordan's eyes swept the crowd, each face a map of reactions. Some employees looked away, ashamed of their laughter or silence. Others met his gaze, their expressions a mix of fear and respect. Linda, now promoted, stood to the side, wiping tears from her eyes, her gratitude unspoken but clear. Robert Kingsley, Jordan's father, watched with a quiet pride, his earlier shame giving way to trust in his son. Jordan took a step forward, the weight of the moment settling over the room. He wasn't here for revenge. He was here to build something better, and he was about to make that clear. "Respect," Jordan said, the word cutting through the silence like a blade. He let it hang, let it sink into every corner of the room. Respect isn't something you give to a select few. It's not about race, class, or how someone dresses. It's the foundation of everything we do. His voice was steady, each word deliberate. Without it, we become what I saw this week, people who tear others down because they think they can. A few employees lowered their heads, the guilt heavy. Jordan's gaze didn't waver. He was speaking to them all, but especially to those who'd laughed, who'd watched, who'd let the poison spread. "I've walked these halls," he continued, pacing slowly. "I've been invisible to you. Ignored. Insulted. Humiliated." His eyes flicked to the conference room table, still stained with the memory of Amanda's thrown coffee. "I've cleaned messes made just to break me. And through it all, I learned something." He paused, every breath in the room held. The people who tear others down? They're afraid. Afraid of change. Afraid of equality. Afraid of a world where power comes from integrity, not privilege. The room crackled with the truth of his words. He was right, and they knew it. Jordan stopped pacing, his voice rising. "That ends today." The promise landed like a vow, unshakable. Employees shifted, some nodding, others still processing. Kevin, standing near the edge of the crowd, looked like he might collapse, his face a mask of dread. Amanda's hands trembled, her eyes darting for an exit that didn't exist. They were irrelevant now, their power stripped away. Jordan's focus was on the future, not their ruin. He turned to his father, who gave a single nod, a silent signal to keep going. "Effective immediately," Jordan said, "this company will have new policies. Discrimination will have no place here. There will be accountability. There will be consequences. There will be change." A few gasps broke the silence, but no one argued. How could they? The man they'd mocked was now their leader, and his words carried the weight of someone who'd seen their worst and still chose to build, not destroy. Jordan's eyes softened for a moment, a faint smile breaking through. "This isn't about making people suffer," he said. "It's about making this company what it should be, a place where we all rise by lifting each other up." The room shifted, the tension easing but not gone. Employees who'd been silent began to nod, their faces showing something new, hope, maybe, or at least the start of it. Linda stepped closer, her presence a quiet reminder of what was possible. Jordan's gaze found her, and he gave a small nod, acknowledging her role in this moment. Then he turned back to the crowd, his voice firm but not harsh. "Some of you stood by while I was treated like nothing. Some of you laughed. But some of you didn't. I saw you. I remember you. And I'll need you, because this company isn't mine alone, it's ours. The words hit hard, a call to action and a warning. Employees exchanged glances, some uncomfortable, others inspired. Jordan wasn't just changing policies, he was changing the culture, and everyone in that room felt it. He wasn't asking for loyalty, he was demanding it, not through fear but through a vision of something better. Robert Kingsley stepped forward, his chest rising with a deep breath. He looked at his son, then at the employees, his voice low but clear. "Jordan speaks for me," he said. "He speaks for Kingsley Enterprises. This is his company now." The declaration was final, a passing of the torch. Robert extended his hand, and Jordan shook it, the gesture simple but seismic. It wasn't just a handshake, it was a public acknowledgement that Jordan Carter Kingsley was the future. The room erupted into murmurs, some shocked, others awed. Kevin's head dropped lower, his hands clenched. Amanda's face was a mask of defeat, her earlier defiance gone. They were footnotes now, their actions the catalyst for a reckoning they couldn't escape. Jordan faced the crowd one last time, his voice steady. "I'm not here to tear this company down," he said. "I'm here to rebuild it. But let me be clear, if you can't respect everyone in this building, no matter who they are, you don't belong here." The warning was unmistakable, and it landed with the force of a gavel. Employees nodded, some hesitantly, others with conviction. The ones who'd laughed at him days ago now looked like they wanted to disappear. Jordan saw it all, and he let them feel it. This was their chance to change or leave. As the crowd began to disperse, the reality settled in. Jordan Carter, the janitor they'd mocked, was their CEO. The company they'd known was gone, replaced by one that would demand better. Linda approached Jordan, her voice soft. "Thank you," she said, her eyes still wet. Jordan shook his head. "No, Linda. Thank you." She smiled, a small but real connection in a room still reeling. Robert placed a hand on Jordan's shoulder, his voice quiet. "You've done what I couldn't," he said. "I'm proud of you." Jordan nodded, the weight of his father's words heavy but welcome. The day wasn't over, but the battle was won. Kevin and Amanda were escorted out, their protests ignored. The employees returned to their desks, their whispers now about Jordan, about change, about what came next. Jordan stood alone for a moment, looking out at the city skyline through the glass walls. He'd come here to uncover a betrayal, and he'd found it. But he'd also found something else, a chance to make his mother's lessons, his father's legacy, and his own strength mean something. The fight wasn't over, but Jordan was ready. Kingsley Enterprises was his now, and he was just getting started. The dust settled in Kingsley Enterprises, but the air still hummed with change. Jordan Carter stood at the heart of the office, his janitor's uniform a stark contrast to the authority he now wielded. Kevin Matthews and Amanda Whitmore were gone, their careers reduced to ash by their own cruelty. Linda, newly promoted, stood as proof that kindness could rise where arrogance fell. The employees, once quick to laugh at Jordan, now moved with a cautious respect, their whispers filled with awe and unease. Jordan had won the battle, but the war for the soul of the company was far from over. This was his empire now, and he was ready to reshape it. Jordan walked through the halls, no longer pushing a mop but carrying the weight of leadership. Employees parted as he passed, their eyes darting between curiosity and guilt. Some offered hesitant nods, others avoided his gaze entirely. The chandeliers above gleamed, the floors still sparkled, but the atmosphere was different, charged with the promise of something new. Jordan's first act as CEO wasn't just firing Kevin and Amanda or promoting Linda. It was a signal, no one was untouchable, and no one was invisible. He'd seen the company's ugliness, and he was here to root it out. In the executive boardroom, Jordan met with his father and the senior team. Robert Kingsley sat at the head of the table, but his eyes were on his son, deferring to him. The executives, men and women in tailored suits, shifted uncomfortably. They'd heard about the janitor turned CEO, and they knew their own roles were under scrutiny. Jordan stood, his voice calm but firm. "This company has a legacy," he said. "But it's been tainted. Promotions based on favoritism, complaints ignored, people treated like they don't belong, that stops now. The room was silent, every word landing like a verdict. One executive, a gray-haired man named Thompson, cleared his throat. "Mr. Kingsley," he said, his tone careful, "changes, admirable. But rapid shifts could disrupt operations." Jordan's eyes locked onto him, sharp and unyielding. "Disrupt," he said. "Good. If operations mean protecting people like Kevin Matthews, they need disrupting." Thompson shrank back, his argument crumbling. Another executive, a woman named Patel, nodded slightly, her face showing quiet approval. Jordan noted it. He wasn't here to make enemies, but he wasn't here to make friends either. He was here to fix what was broken. Over the next week, Jordan moved fast. He rolled out new policies, mandatory training on workplace respect, a clear process for reporting discrimination, and a review of every promotion from the past 5 years. He brought in an outside firm to audit the company's practices, ensuring no stone was left unturned. Employees whispered about the changes, some nervous, others relieved. "He's serious," one said in the break room. "I thought it was just talk," another replied. Jordan heard it all, and he let it fuel him. Change wasn't just a promise, it was happening. Linda proved to be a quiet force. As the new head of her department, she worked closely with Jordan, offering insights from years of being overlooked. "People like me," she told him one afternoon, "we saw what was happening, but we had no voice." Jordan leaned forward, his eyes intense. "You have one now," he said. "Use it." Linda nodded, her confidence growing. She wasn't the only one. Other employees, once silenced, began speaking up, sharing stories of unfair treatment. Jordan listened, his resolve hardening. This was why he'd come back. Not everyone embraced the shift. A few managers, loyal to the old ways, pushed back. One, a friend of Kevin's named Reynolds, cornered Jordan in the hallway. "You're moving too fast," he said, his tone sharp. "You're going to tank morale." Jordan didn't flinch. "Morale," he said. "For who? The people who laughed while I mopped up their messes?" Reynolds opened his mouth, then closed it, his bravado fading. Jordan stepped closer, his voice low. "Get on board, or get out." Reynolds walked away, but Jordan knew he'd have to watch him. Change had enemies, and he was ready for them. At home, Jordan's nights were long. He sat at his small table, reviewing reports, planning next steps. His mother's voice echoed in his mind, her lessons about strength, about standing tall no matter what the world threw at you. He'd honored her by coming here, by facing the company's darkness head-on. But he wasn't just fighting for her. He was fighting for every person who'd been dismissed, belittled, or ignored. He thought of Linda, of the employees now finding their voices, and he knew this was worth it. One morning, Jordan arrived to find a small crowd outside his office. Employees, some he recognized, others he didn't, stood waiting. A young man stepped forward, nervous but determined. "Mr. Kingsley," he said, "we just wanted to say, thank you. For what you're doing." A woman beside him nodded. "It's different now," she said. "Better." Jordan looked at them, his face softening. "Don't thank me," he said. "Help me. This is your company too." They nodded, their faces bright with something new, hope. Robert Kingsley visited again, this time privately. In Jordan's office, he looked at his son with a mix of pride and regret. "I should have seen it," he said, his voice heavy. "The way things were." Jordan shook his head. "You built this place," he said. "I'm just making it what it was meant to be." Robert smiled, a rare warmth in his eyes. "You're doing more than that," he said. "You're making it yours." He extended his hand, and Jordan shook it, the bond between them stronger than ever. As weeks turned to months, Kingsley Enterprises transformed. The new policies took root, the audit uncovered more issues, and Jordan addressed them with the same relentless focus. Employees began to trust the changes, to believe in the vision. The company's reputation grew, not just for profit but for fairness. Jordan walked the halls now in a suit, But he never forgot the weight of the mop, the sting of the insults. They'd shaped him, and he carried them as a reminder of why he fought. One day, Linda stopped by his office, a file in hand. "You kept your promise," she said, her voice steady. Jordan leaned back, a faint smile on his face. "So did you," he said. She laughed, and for a moment, the weight of the past lifted. Outside, the city skyline stretched before the glass walls, a world Jordan was changing one step at a time. He'd come as a nobody, faced betrayal, and emerged as a leader. Kingsley Enterprises wasn't just his father's legacy anymore, it was his. And he was building it into something that would outlast them all.